I was sexually assaulted by a family member, a close family member, and didn't talk about it for 15 years.
Did you know when it happened that it was wrong?
No. There was no guidepost for that. He told me not to tell anybody. There was no safe place to go because no one would have believed me over him. And then I never spoke another word about it till I was 57. People were like, why didn't you report? Why didn't you report? Because we don't.
Right.
We don't report. I hope he didn't hurt any other people the way he hurt me.
So let's start with, who is Diane?
Loaded question.
Yeah.
Today, happily married, mother of 2 beautiful children. They have married their soulmates. They showed me what marriage really is. I have 6 beautiful grandchildren. I'm a family law attorney. I'm active in several organizations, probably too many. And
Aren't we all?
Yes. So my life is as full as it's ever been. Yes. I am the best woman I've ever been today.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for you. Your wedding pictures were just stunning and beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. So you're also a former military soldier. Mm-hmm. You are a linguist. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. Well, we'll talk about proficiency, but that's,
yeah.
I was once trained as a linguist.
Yeah. And tell me what your grandchildren call you.
Okay. So my daughter's 2 children call me Meme, which is the Canadian French version of grandmother. And my other 4 call me Mop, M-O-P. And that evolved from my oldest calling me Gamma, Mop. And then, of course, my son grabbed onto that, and being the comedian he is, it just stuck. And so they run to me with that name.
Yes. And I love it, though. I love it when people have nicknames that are unusual like that, because I think it gives so much character and background just into, their feelings for you.
It's
not
true.
That they feel you're a mop, but.
No, not at all. They are actually, I always swore I always wanted to be a grandmother. That was a big deal. It's life's rewards, right? So when my oldest started, when my oldest was born, she'll be 13 next in March. And I thought, if I win her, I get the rest of them, right? So it was very important. And now that she's going to be a teenager, we're like friends.
That's
we go
amazing.
to concerts together. We do things. We watch all of the dog shows that make you cry together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there somebody famous that people think you look like?
Absolutely. Barbra Streisand.
Wow. How long has that been?
Since I was 18. It started when I was in the Army, and I was in the Russian course, and my professor invited us to her house. And I was walking across the living room, and this woman stopped. She goes, "Oh my God, you look like Barbra Streisand." And I'm like, "Really? I didn't know." But
did you feel like that was a compliment at first?
No. I mean, I had zero self-esteem back then. I mean, I had no idea I had any value in this world, to be honest with you. So being told that and knowing the jokes that people make about Barbra Streisand and her big nose. And so over the years, I would hear it occasionally. One of my favorite stories was, I guess it was in like 2014, it was later than that, 2017. I was at a wedding, and Secretary James Baker's family, he and his family are friends of mine.
Because you're from Houston.
I'm from Houston.
Yes.
And I met them years ago, and it was his grandson's wedding. And he and I had been visiting the night before about the war, the first Gulf War and all of that. So my paralegal and I were both at the wedding. We come walking in, they seat us right behind him, and he turns around and he says, "You know who you look like?" And I said, "Barbra Streisand." He goes, "Yep, dead ringer." And so now he addresses me as Barbara. I'm always going to be Barbara. He and Susan both.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten to meet Barbra Streisand?
I have not. I was going to go to one of her concerts, and we were talking earlier about the price of concert tickets, and it was going to cost me almost $1,000. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to sit in 50,000 people and hope that she sees me and thinks I look like her.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. You should send her a picture, though. Because you really do look like her.
I do.
It's amazing. Okay, so let's kind of take a walk backwards. So where were you raised?
I was born and raised in Toledo, Ohio, working class family. My father did not have a high school diploma. My mother had come from abject poverty. Like, she had been in foster homes because her parents couldn't afford her. Her parents were divorced, and this would have been in the 30s when that was just not a thing. She had 3 sisters. They were moving all the time. So her big thing was security. And the house that I was brought home from the hospital in is the house I left. And that's the house we moved my mother out of when she finally went into assisted living. So as far as that sort of part of my life, I was the youngest of 4. I was the one that was destined for greatness, which sounds cool, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's also a problem when the siblings, my older siblings, knew about it, and that I was the one. I was college material. I was smart.
Did your parents instill that in you? I mean, were they the ones that had the high hopes for you?
Absolutely. I think the best part, one of the things that they did was they understood what our abilities were. I have 0 talent. I can't play a sport. I can't play an instrument. I can't sing a note. So thank God I'm smart, or else I'd be living on the street.
Smart one.
Yeah. So they knew that I could get straight A's, and when I didn't, I heard noise about it. I had a sister that worked really, really hard for her B's and C's, and they understood that. So they asked us to live up to our potential, right? And they also gave us a great love of music, of all genres. And the 4 of us will say that is the greatest gift that they gave us growing up. So when I graduated high school, I was the youngest of 4, and their goal was to get us through high school, because that was all was expected in the 70s, was we're going to get you through high school. So I left home with the clothes on my back and a high school diploma. And I don't say that in a bad way. It's not like my parents didn't support us or anything. It was just
it was different then.
That was a goal. My dad didn't have his high school diploma, so we were, again, one level up from what they were.
And so did you go from there into the military, or was there kind of a foray in between?
I graduated at 17, and there had been some things in my childhood that you would describe as trauma. Anybody would describe as trauma.
Do you describe them as trauma?
Absolutely. But I didn't know it at the time.
Do you want to share those?
I absolutely will, because I have shared this in public. At the age of 13, I was sexually assaulted by a family member, a close family member, and didn't talk about it for 15 years.
Did you know when it happened that it was wrong?
No. There was no guidepost for that.
Yeah.
He was the golden boy of the family. He was someone that married into my family, and my parents thought he hung the moon. And he told me not to tell anybody because it would be embarrassing. And then after it happened, the horrible part is that his son was sleeping. My nephew was sleeping in the next room, and my sister was at the hospital giving birth to my niece. And I didn't know any of that connection. I just knew I couldn't tell anybody. There was no safe place to go because no one would have believed me over him. Nobody. And so I carried it silently until I was 28. And then I told my sister. They'd since divorced. And she felt awful. And then I never spoke another word about it till I was 57. When I went through therapy. My great niece was getting married, and it all started coming up. And I wrote him a letter as part of therapy that, you're really lucky I never reported this. You should have gone to prison. I think the regret about not reporting it, I understand why I didn't, and I totally am on board with why I didn't, and I'm comfortable with that. But I hope he didn't hurt any other people the way he hurt me.
When did you realize what he did was wrong? When did you feel the trauma from that?
In my 50s, when his granddaughter got married, when my niece got married. And I could start smelling it, and I could start tasting it, and I could start feeling it. It was all coming up. I was walking my dogs in my neighborhood where $1 million houses were. And I felt this vial, very uncomfortable. And it was very surprising because the smell. I remember walking my dogs and I smelled it.
So what did you smell?
The beer, the alcohol.
Like alcohol on his breath.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it was shortly after or around Me Too. And people were like, why didn't you report? Why didn't you report? Because we don't.
Right.
We don't report.
Well, and what year would that have been? I mean,
it was 1973.
Yeah.
1974.
And it just wasn't something that was talked about.
Now, I have recently shared it with my other sister, and her response back to me was, why didn't you do something? Why didn't you get out of bed? Why didn't you? I said,
you were 13.
That was exactly, I yelled it at her, actually.
Yeah.
I was 13. I didn't know. I was still kind of in the doll stage. Girls are maturing a little bit faster today, but I was still kind of in that flux between little girl and teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the worst part that I discovered through therapy was I had no safe place to go. And if I could give a lesson to any parents or any humans, we're all part of this whole deal, is to give people safe places, to give children, to give others a safe place where you don't say, why didn't you leave?
But if you knew it was wrong, how would you have known to get up, or how would you have known to tell somebody? Do you think at some deep level you knew it was wrong and you couldn't tell?
Yes. But it's interesting because the next day was my nephew's first birthday party. So everybody had come to the house, and I had this ghostly feel. I don't know if my mother picked up on it. She goes, what's wrong with you? What's going on? And I was sitting on the floor. She was in the rocking chair.
This is the next day after it happened.
And I said, nothing. I'm just tired. And I think when I think back on that, I'm like, why didn't you tell her? But only in hindsight can I say today that they wouldn't have believed me.
Yeah.
Because it was easier to not believe one person, not to believe me, than for the whole family to know and somebody have to do something. Like prosecute him.
What do you think was the effect on you as a preteen and teenage girl?
I've always felt like I was born not feeling comfortable in my own skin. We'll start with that. So that was then this happens. And as I got older into my teens and stuff, I had no idea what a healthy relationship would look like. I had no idea how to function without alcohol. And I didn't start really drinking. I mean, alcohol wasn't taboo in my family. My father was an alcoholic. He died of alcoholism at 56. And so when I got through high school and into the Army, the effect was that I never felt comfortable unless I had alcohol in my body. And so right before I left home for the Army, I was at a pool hall with some friends that I worked with, a woman and her husband, another couple. We were drinking rum and Cokes, and we were playing pool. There was a door to go outside, and I had to open the door to throw up in the bushes. And as I'm throwing up in the bushes, not to be too vile, but there was a sense that came over me that, my God, I finally belong. I found my place. And I spent 20 years trying to recapture that.
Yeah.
So
kind of going from those teenage years into the military, like, were you sexually active as a teenager? I mean, was that a consequence of what had happened?
I didn't really date that much until my senior year. And then I became sexually active, very unhealthy, very not knowing. I just didn't know. I didn't know that you could have a loving, caring relationship. And I felt that everything was guided by sex, everything, and alcohol. Mm-hmm. And one and the other combination was just not pretty. And I got in, when I went into the military and after I got out of basic, it was game on.
What made you decide to go into the military?
Well,
because that's in the 70s, right?
Yeah, it was 1978 when I enlisted.
I mean, that was unusual, right?
Yes.
How many women were you around that were in the military?
One was my best friend that I grew up with. And my brother was in the Army at the time, and some other friends had gone in the Army. And understand, we were a very blue-collar, working-class family. There weren't opportunities there. My mother and father had no idea how to send us to college. Every time I would get accepted to a college, I did all the application process, but my mother would say, how are you going to pay for that? And I really didn't know. I had no idea. There was no FAFSA or internet, right? So I'm sleeping on the sofa at my sister's apartment where they have a 2-bedroom apartment. And this is the brother-in-law that had assaulted me. And because I had stuffed it down enough that it never came up. Rarely came up, the whole assault. And
So let me stop you right there.
sure.
You keep saying the word assault. Is that the right word?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, I had gone to bed. He climbed in and just took advantage of me the whole night long,
Oh my God.
all night long.
Why do you not use the word rape?
I don't know, Michelle. That's a great question. I really don't know.
Because I guess what I don't, I'm like mad on your behalf right now. And
You want his
like,
address?
Yeah, I do. But like what I don't want to do is underemphasize what you went through.
Exactly.
By using, you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. By using a lawyer word assault, I don't want to underemphasize the trauma that you went through. You know what I mean?
I do agree with that.
Okay.
And I think because we are lawyers, that's the term, that's
Sure.
the felony charge,
Sure.
right? So to say it was rape, absolutely.
Okay.
And
How long? I mean, all night.
all night.
Yeah.
All night until he finally left and he came back in and woke me up because
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
weren't
fall
asleep.
asleep. There was at some level I knew how wrong and awful that was, but I didn't know. I didn't know what to do. And he said, you can't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And I said, oh yeah, you'd be embarrassed, wouldn't you? That's the level I
Right.
was. That's the maturity level I was. And so there were times after that when he would drive me home after babysitting and he would tell me that, he would always call it, what happened? He'd call it what happened. And if my sister was pregnant when they got married, and he said, if I hadn't had to marry Linda, I would have married you. And so there's this level of, oh my God, the golden boy in the family
Loves me.
loves
likes
me. Yeah. He would choose me. And I think in everybody's life, there's some of that goes on. And so there was so much confusion that I didn't even know was there.
Did it ever happen again?
No, it did not.
Okay.
It never did. Thank goodness. Because I don't know what I would have responded to, right? I don't know how that would have, if it had happened again. There was never any indication of it.
So you have a best friend. Did she go in the military first or did y'all
She
go
did go
together?
first,
Okay.
yes. And she was a year older than me. So she went in and I'm like working 2 jobs and I could not afford a place to live. And I had no idea where to go or what to do. And I had no adult mentor to guide me through anything. So I was on the sofa and I think I saw I was reading a magazine and I remember tossing the magazine and going, I'm just going to go in the Army. And so next day I made the appointment to take the ASVAB. And of course I did really well on the ASVAB. So they
Because
said,
you were the smart one.
I was the smart one. And so the recruiter was like, yippee, and come take, I need to put you into military intelligence. All I wanted was a law degree. When I was in first grade, my teacher asked me in front of my mom, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, a lawyer. There were no lawyers. I have no idea where that
Right.
came from. And that's all I ever wanted to be. And I thought this was a good shot at it. So I went in. I had no idea about rank or what I was doing. I had no idea. What was a battalion or a company? I had no idea. So I took the test and then I had to leave work. I was working at a dress shop for well-heeled women in the community where you bring the dresses out. And it was awful. It was an awful thing to have to do, to sell things like that. But I had left early to go to the recruiting station and my sister called the store and asked for me, and one of my coworkers said, no, she went to take the Army test. So she calls my parents, who call me in a panic. What are
Right.
you doing? Why are you going in the Army? And as I had mentioned, my father was an alcoholic. I couldn't go back home because he was at that point beyond repair as far as his alcoholism and his health. And they said, why don't you just go to college? My parents called me to the house for this meeting. And I said, I'm just going to do this. I said, I can't come home. And, we're so disappointed in you. because you're supposed to go to college. I said, I don't know how to do that, Mom.
Right.
I don't. And
because nobody could pay for it.
no.
Right.
And for back then, it probably cost $1,000 a semester, maybe $500, which was $1 million to me.
Yeah.
And so,
And there weren't the opportunities for scholarships and grants for women that there are now.
oh, sure.
Yeah.
And if you would have, if I would have gone in, everybody that ever knew that I wanted to be a lawyer never had a doubt that I could do it. There was never any doubt in me, my ability to do it. It was the opportunity to do it. So as I'm going through the processing part for the military, they said, you need to take this test called a DLAT test. It's for language, if you have any language skills. It is the most, it's compared to the LSAT, okay? It has absolutely no value whatsoever.
But you hadn't taken any foreign languages before that?
I had French in high school, just the stuff you usually take. My father grew up speaking fluent French. He was Canadian French up in northern Minnesota. But he was the youngest, second to the youngest of 16 kids. And so he lost it pretty quick. And so they said, well, you tested really well. You can go to language school. I said, well, can I learn French? And they're like, probably not, but let me make a phone call. It wasn't like they could put it into the computer, but they said, we have one slot available. So I went to basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri in January and February 1979. Managed to get through that. And then
Were
I got
you athletic or physical before that?
absolutely not. No, not at all. So I had to learn how to do push-ups. I had to learn how to run. And I will say I went into the military 2 months after the Women's Army Corps had been dissolved and integrated into the regular Army. So they didn't really know what to do with us. They didn't know. We were the first female company to go through Fort Leonard Wood.
So you were in a company of all women?
Mm-hmm. But it was you have companies and then you have, or platoons. We were the only first platoon, I'm sorry. Then you have like 4 platoons that make up a company and several companies that make up a battalion.
So your platoon was all women, but your company was co-ed?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is really, it's not a good thing. And if you ask me today, I would say desegregate the military. If 40 years after I got out, they're still talking about sexual harassment, it's a culture thing that can't change.
Yeah.
So I go to language school in Monterey, California. And that was like, that does not suck, Michelle.
You're living in Monterey, California, learning French.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I would go down to Carmel and study on the beach. I had like $0. I got paid maybe $100 and some every 2 weeks. So that was enough for cigarettes and 35-cent drafts down at the NCO club. But it was a great experience. I was very young and I was in a group of officers and these people in my class were going to these exotic places. I was told I was going to go to SHAPE headquarters in Belgium. That didn't happen. But I got through the school.
And so in that schooling, did you just learn the French?
Just learned French. It was 6 hours a day. It's an immersion sort of school. All French nationals, or in French, it was like Haiti, Belgium, French, Northern Africa instructors. So they were all native speakers. And it was really a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun and we butchered the language really well. So that would make, it was just fun what we did. And I had a class of about 7 and I was the youngest. So I was 18. I was their baby. I would come in really hungover and I had it down where I could sit at my desk like this with my book and close my eyes and then laugh when I was supposed to and all of that. And
because you were drunk.
I was either drunk or hungover, yeah. And they knew it. But it was like what everybody did.
Right.
It was sort of like my college days. So I graduated, didn't do as well as I could have, but it was an experience. And then I had to come to Texas for Intel school in San Angelo. And that's where you get your assignments. And so SHAPE. I got Fort Hood, Texas. And it was worse than just being at Fort Hood, Texas. It was at West Fort Hood, which is about a 7-mile drive from civilization. And I had no car. And it was an awful experience as far as the military and the people and all of that. But I made some of the best friends of my life. And we had to go out to California for this field problem, and you just bonded with these people because it's like diversity brings people closer. And that was in 1979, and we're still friends today. And we still visit each other today. And so while I was at Fort Hood, I got an opportunity to go to work at NSA in Fort Meade, Maryland. And so I get there.
What is NSA?
National Security Agency. Okay. And it's like the premier counterintelligence unit for our country. And we were working, wasn't any conflict going on like we have today. It was like stuff in the Middle East, but not a whole lot. The Iranian hostage crisis happened right before I went there. And I worked with one of the men that planned the failed hostage rescue where the soldiers died. Mm-hmm. And got to experience, kind of feel that.
Is that where you got to learn Russian?
No.
Oh, we're not even to the
We're
Russian
not to Russian yet.
Oh, my goodness.
So while I'm there, though, a friend of mine who's also a French linguist, now the Army had this many, 7, maybe 6 French linguists in the entire Army. And at one time I had 5 of us in my car. So I was like, man, we could take out the whole French linguist corps in one T-bone accident. But my friend Rick got orders to go back for Russian. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. I'm so jealous. And so I go back to my barracks room and there's a note on my door that says, call Dan at Fort Hood, you're going back to Monterey. I didn't believe him at all. So my friend Al comes knocking on the door and he's like, do you see? I said, yeah, it's just somebody's joke. And he goes, no, you're going back to Monterey. And they could have been teaching me Swahili. I didn't care.
Yeah.
So I get back to Fort Hood.
That would have been a cool thing to learn, though.
I
Swahili.
know. I worked with a woman at NSA that knew 5 languages, and one of them was Somalian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I get back to Fort Hood and I process through, and women weren't well accepted at all. We were a problem. That's what we really were for the military and for the leadership. We were just a problem. They didn't support us, and a lot of sexual harassment stuff going on. And I had reported one incident that was where my squad leader was involved, where he had climbed into where I was sleeping when we were in the field and tried something. And I was so scared, I didn't know what to do. But I turned to him and I said, do you want me to call Lana, who was our female platoon sergeant, she was a ball buster. And I said, I'll just scream for Lana. And he gets up and leaves. And so when they asked the women, they said, have you ever been sexually harassed? And I told them the story. And they said, okay, well, we'll look into it. And they came back. So we investigated it and it didn't happen. So, and it didn't bother me so much other than they were saying it didn't happen. And I didn't expect anything to come of it. But then 40 years later, 50 years later, we're still talking about it.
So you get to go to Monterey and learn Russian.
Yes. And that was a full year, 47 weeks. Again, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. And all of our instructors are Russian nationals. While I'm there, President Reagan got shot. The Pope got shot, right? They're astounded. They stopped class and we went down to the club to watch the news because they're like, who gets a gun? And who gets close enough to a leader with a gun to shoot them?
Right.
So it was a whole really interesting perspective. And we learned the food and the culture and everything. By the time I finished the course, I only had a year left in the military. And they wanted to send me to Berlin, which was still a closed city.
This was before the wall came down.
Correct. And so this would have been in 1981 when I finished. And I had to go to Intel school at Goodfellow again. And so 1982 comes and they send me to Berlin. I said, I don't want it. I want to go to NSA. Can you send me back to NSA? We tried to do that. And they said, they made a mistake. When I finished that school, I should have had 29 months. I should have had to extend my enlistment. And I certainly would have done that to go back to Monterey. But I wasn't going to sign another piece of paper with the Army unless I got to go where I wanted to go. Because they lied about SHAPE, headquarters.
Yeah.
And so I tried to get back to NSA. And they said, if you're not going to extend for Berlin, you need to go back to Fort Hood. And I went, okay. And I went back to Fort Hood. By this time, I had been promoted. I got promoted very quickly to sergeant. I was an NCO. And so I get back to Fort Hood and I'm in a military intelligence unit. And that's where I met my children's father. He was an aircraft mechanic. He was a Huey mechanic. And he wanted to go to flight school. He wanted to go to flight school as badly as I wanted to be a lawyer. And he was tall and he was handsome. And we started dating, and I was getting out of the military. They couldn't give me what I wanted. So I said, well, I'll just get out. So at the end of my enlistment, I started tending bar at a place in Harker Heights called the Waterhole. It's a beer joint. It was a beer joint. I had no idea how to tend bar, but I lied my way into the job. And one of the funniest stories from that job was a woman ordered a margarita, and I had no idea what that was. And I've got the book down here, and I'm mixing it up, and I hand it to her, and she goes, and I just turned around, and I was like, that's what you get for ordering a margarita in a beer joint. And
you have to accept your level of responsibility.
exactly.
Where you're at.
Yes, exactly right. Because I can sling some whiskey, okay? But so then I had, we were dating, and we decided to get married. And I had no, I look back on it and I tell people, I said, he was tall and handsome and he asked. That's as complicated as that marriage.
Right.
I forgot. He was from Montana and I'm from Ohio, so we decided to get married in Belton at the lake, out at the lake. And because that way our families would both have to travel. So we get married in August, and 3 weeks later, he gets picked up for flight school. He had already had his package in. And I still, to this day, have so much respect for what he did. Before he could even be considered, he had to lose 40 pounds. And he would go to the gym every day at lunch and do aerobics when that was a woman's thing, right? And he would come back to the unit and they would tease him about, let's aerobicize with Sergeant McGuire, yay. And he didn't care.
Yeah.
I mean, his diet was like, we go to Taco Bell and he would drink hot sauce for lunch. He knew that this is what he wanted, same way I wanted to be a lawyer.
Do you think that his motivation to achieve that goal of going to flight school helped motivate you in the future?
No, I think what it did is it put us on a parallel path where we had so many hopes and dreams when we got married that he would fly his Hueys, and he did get Hueys. He flew the last Huey UH-1 helicopter at Fort Hood. And then he transitioned over to a bigger aircraft. And what it did is it put us on a path for greatness. And we had the world at our feet because we were both driven. We were both going to be successful. We both had our dreams, and we both came from dysfunctional childhoods. Mm-hmm. He had a horrible, horrible childhood. Physical abuse, abandonment, locked out of his house. I mean, he had a horrible childhood. His father was a police officer and beat him almost to death.
Oh, my.
So
you felt like y'all had some things in common from
absolutely.
Your childhood trauma as well.
Yeah, and we were a pretty couple, and we had it all kind of happening, right?
So how did the marriage end?
It was 10 years of roller coaster rides. I got pregnant pretty quick after we got married, maybe 7 months in, because he had to live in the barracks when he first got to flight school. So I went to Fort Rucker, Alabama with him. And then I got pregnant with my son, which set us on a really difficult course because it wasn't planned, but I wouldn't have it any other way today. But we had a lot of alcohol in our lives. And I drank when I was pregnant with my son. And I quit smoking though, yay, when I got pregnant. And my son is my boy. He was a mama's boy. And that's not exactly what his dad wanted. But his dad had a drinking problem as well. We drank a lot and we battled. We would go to parties and we'd both be drinking, come home, and he could really play it up at a party. Then we get home and then it was just screaming and yelling. And I thought the kids are sleeping, no big deal. But we had a 1,300 square foot house. Yeah. They heard all of it.
Right. So when did you know that the marriage was over?
It was when I knew it was over, when he asked me one day, I'd already filed. And he said, what is it that you want? And probably the most honest I've ever been with him was when I said, I don't know, but this isn't it. And it came down to, I supported him through flight school and getting his degree so he could get promoted. And when it came time for him to support me in getting my undergraduate degree and my graduate degree, it wasn't there. Mm-hmm. I got my paralegal degree at Central Texas College with a 4.0. And I walked across the stage that Saturday morning, and some friends wanted to go celebrate, and he didn't want me to go. He did not go celebrate with me.
Yeah.
Because what I realized later is with every time I was raised, up, he felt like it lowered him. Like there was
Like
some
it was a
inverse.
competition.
Yeah. Instead of being my biggest fan.
Yeah.
So
So you divorced him. And then did you get married again?
I did. But it was a little bit of time in between there. I have been single more than I've been married in my life. So, which is, for those of you who aren't married, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I was, by this time I'm board certified paralegal. Things are going really well. But I was working in Belton. I was earning crap money and no health insurance. But I go to Houston for a seminar and I meet a guy. So 3 months later, I pack up my kids and everything I own and I moved to the 4th largest city in the country for a dude, right? It failed. But it was a crushing blow, mostly because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I moved from a town where I was well known and well respected, and had a lot going on there for a guy, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
But what that made me understand even more and much better than I ever thought I could was that my drinking was a problem. And that was in 1996.
So, and that leads me to the question I've been dying to ask you to get to this point. Tell me, we've all had that low moment, right? That moment when you were so in the ditch, you couldn't see your way out. And if you haven't had that moment, you just haven't lived long enough.
Probably
because we've
true.
all had it.
Yes.
And when you're in that moment, you think you are so alone, so hopeless, that you may not believe that there is a tomorrow. Tell me about that moment for you.
December 1996. When David and I broke up, I didn't drink for a while because
Second husband, David.
We didn't get married.
Okay.
No, we were not married. I didn't drink for a while because I knew that probably wasn't a good idea. But as I approached December of 1996, I was out of control. My kids were getting older. I was leaving them longer. I was becoming quite the rager, where screaming was my only outlet. And that was directed at my children, mostly, and my ex-husband. And December comes, and I go to my firm Christmas party.
And you're still a paralegal at this point?
Yes. And I was working for a firm in Houston. And I swore I was not going to get drunk. I was not going to get drunk. Normal people don't think that way, but I didn't understand that at the time. I was like, I'm not going to get drunk. I'm not going to get drunk. And get to the party, and there's an attorney in my office that is sober. He had been in recovery for about 5 years. And every time he said anything about it, I thought he was talking to me because I was so self-aware that I was drinking way too much and was probably an alcoholic. And I'm drinking wine. And the next thing you know, I am sitting down at a table realizing, oh my God, you did it again. You did it again. And I just kept drinking that night. When we left the party, we went over to this place in Rice Village where I proceeded to get really drunk. I was supposed to pick up my kids at 10 o'clock. That was like long gone. And I ended up mugging with general counsel for one of our biggest clients. And by the time I get to the place where my kids are at, there's a note on the door. I call it the note of shame. Diane, you weren't here by 10, so we just put the kids to bed and you can come by tomorrow and get them. They were cool, but I wore my life very heavily. I didn't wear life like a loose garment like most people. Everything that I did that was wrong was shameful. I internalized it. It became just a part of my soul. And so I drove that night to get to that place, to get to that house where my kids were, in a blackout. I was in a blackout from Rice Village to NRG Stadium. And there was a turn where you go to my apartment on 59, or you go straight on 610. And I almost hit that split because I didn't know what I had to cover to get rid of the double lines. And I realized the next day that there was no connection for anybody to know where my children were. It was a friend of my son's from school, his parents. And if I had died that night, they would have found out on the news. I don't know how they would have found my children.
When did you realize that? When did you have that moment?
The
next day or?
The next day.
Yeah.
And then things started happening quite speedily. I'm driving down Woodway, beautiful sunny day. There's a hole in these trees. The sun is just coming through. And I hear a voice telling me, if you keep doing this, you're going to lose your children. It was God speaking to me. It was God's guiding hand that got me to Houston. It was God putting me on the path where I didn't have that DWI yet. I hadn't killed anybody yet. But there were so many yets that I hadn't experienced. So I got through that shame attack. I could barely go to work on Monday. I don't know that I lifted my head up for months walking down the hallway. So I get invited to a party with the Baker family. I'm not going to drink before I go. I'm not going to have alcohol in my breath. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. Next thing you know, they open the bar, have some wine. I'm in a blackout. I come out of a blackout talking to some lawyer, agreeing to do something. I joke around. I said, it could have been contract paralegal work or have an affair. I don't know. Until this day, I don't know what it was.
You don't know what you agreed to do.
Have no idea. But I realized that my friend, Tegan, was my only friend. And I thought I was going to destroy the only relationship I had in Houston. I literally ran from the house, ran to my car, got home, went to sleep. And about 4 a.m, I woke up and I nearly vomited all over my daughter who was sleeping next to me. And I started calling AA clubs. And I was, how do I do this? What do I do? Where do I go? What do I say? And this guy that kept asking at the club I was calling, he's like, lady, just come on in. And so fast forward to right after Christmas.
Still 1996?
1996. It's December 26th. I'd gone to dinner with Tegan. We'd gone to a movie. We went to dinner. Had a glass of wine. It was at the Houston Country Club. So it was like, I have arrived in my mind, right? And she leaves a half glass of wine and I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, who does that? And immediately my mind went, no, but Diane, normal people don't think that way. And so the next day I went to work, we got off early and I ran from the building because I didn't want anybody to ask me to go drink with them because the next day my kids were coming back from their dad's for our Christmas. So I go home and I go to the grocery store to get the stuff and for our dinner. And I was going to stop and have a drink someplace, but whatever. I meet a woman at the counter with the VCR tapes, okay? And we walk outside, we're talking. She goes, let's go have coffee. And we go into Starbucks and she tells me she's in AA. And I burst into tears. And she said, I knew that. That's why we're here. I knew it by just the little bit of conversation we had. And I said, well, when's your next meeting? She goes, tomorrow. I'm like, oh. So it's like, Diane, you're going to have to do this or not, right?
Yeah.
She gives me direction. She says, I'll meet you there. And so I go home and I start getting ready for my kids to come in the next day. And honestly, Michelle, I was so excited because I was like, oh my God, there's a solution.
A solution to the problem.
I can do this. And I said, so I'm going to do this AA thing tomorrow. And then next week, I'm going to go talk to Matt, the lawyer in our firm, and I'm find out what he did. And I get to the meeting and I tried to talk myself out of it, but the car just drove into the parking lot. And I walk in like I own the damn place. And there's Matt leading the meeting that I'm going to sit in.
And he was with your firm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did he know?
He knew what had happened at the Christmas party. Did he know that I needed to be there? When I walked in, he shouldn't have been surprised.
Yeah.
And so at this point.
So what do you think it was that got you from that moment where you knew that you were at your lowest, your blackout, the shame note? Do you still have the shame note?
No, I never kept that.
Good.
I know, right?
Moving on. So
I can still visualize it on the front door.
What do you think got you from that moment where you just were at that lowest point, you were reading that shame note and, knew that your drinking was affecting your children to the point where you walked in that meeting?
My kids. I knew that my father was an alcoholic, their father was an alcoholic, I was an alcoholic. If anyone was going to stop the cycle, it was me. I was their only shot. My kid's only shot at having a good life.
So getting sober happened immediately?
It did.
Yeah.
I picked up a Desire chip that morning, and I haven't looked back. And December 26th, 1990, or December 27th, 1996 is my only sobriety date. And it hit, it stuck. And I'm very grateful for that.
And from there, you were able to go to law school?
I was already in night school, getting my undergraduate degree, and I was doing it very deliberately. 2 classes in the spring and 2 in the fall, nothing in the summer, because my kids were really young. Racking up some student loans and just checking off the list. I was grateful my military and the credits from Central Texas College pushed me forward. It took me so long to get my undergraduate degree that I graduated the same semester my son graduated from high school, having started college shortly after he was born. So I was still in night school, and 25 days after I got sober, my son said he wanted to go live with his dad. Mm. And I was crushed. But I thought only sobriety was able to get me through it, because I thought if he had the courage enough to ask me, I had to have the courage enough to let him.
Yeah.
And I knew that if it wasn't going to work, everybody knew it wasn't going to work, but he had to know. And he was going to have a crappy relationship with his dad one way or the other. I wasn't going to be the fall guy. So it was a little selfish too, but I let him go. He left at the end of that school year.
Would have been very easy to go back to the bottle after that.
The day he told me, he got in the car when I picked him up, and my hands gripped the steering wheel and I could taste the red wine. But I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I saw it coming. Everybody saw it coming. And what it was at the end of the day was my husband wanted to hurt me. That was it. And he knew there was only one way, because I gave up everything when we got divorced except my children. And he wanted to hurt me. Everybody. And that was the only way. So the day he came to pick him up in June was an awful day. We were all crying. And loading up his stuff. And a few years ago, I realized those moments you can still see, right? Years later, that when their dad looked at me, he didn't get the satisfaction he thought.
Because you let it go.
He thought that when he saw me hurting so badly, he wasn't happy. I think he regretted it. Mm-hmm. And I stayed very involved in my son's activities up there. And I'd leave work at 1 PM and go watch him play baseball that night and come back to work the next day. I sent him stuff all the time, and I baked for him.
Did they live in Houston?
No, Colleen, up at Fort Hood.
Okay.
And then his dad remarried. And there are very few people I will call evil. She was it. Mm. Everybody knew her as evil. She destroyed so much. She nearly destroyed my children. Right before my son's senior year of high school, I had to go pick him up because his dad had hit him. And his dad, I know, knew the minute he did that what was going to happen. And my daughter was there for the summer. And I went and picked them up, and I didn't know what to do. My son was in the top 10% of his class up there. I didn't know where he'd land if he came here. And so after I picked him up, and his dad signed the papers to give me custody, his best friend's family there in Killeen said, he's staying with us. They had raised 4 kids, and his best friend was their youngest, and they let him live with them. And he graduated high school, went on to the University of Texas, because that's the only place he wanted to go.
Yeah. But how hard was that for you to let him live with some other family?
You have no idea. Today, thinking back to how does a parent do that?
Right.
This family is so dear to me. Because Mary was like, her husband was asking some questions. We were at lunch and he's like, well, what about this? And she goes, Jim just stopped talking. He's going to live with us. She said, Diane, it's not like he's going to be there much more. He's just going to be sleeping there. And she kept a pretty tight rein on them.
Yeah.
He had been working there, going to school, playing baseball. He played in his church music group. He played bass, and really a good kid. And every dollar he earned, but maybe a handful of money, went to his dad. And so I said, you just quit working and enjoy your senior year. And he did. And I said, just don't drop out of the top 10% or you're going to get throat punched. So here we go. And he did great. He did great.
So I want to fast forward now.
Yeah.
How you just got married.
I did.
Love of your life.
Truly.
How did y'all meet? Well, tell
the story.
Tell us,
it's a great story.
What is his name?
His name is Todd Brewer.
Okay.
He's a chiropractor down in South Texas. I met his stepfather at my first AA meeting. And his stepfather and I became very good friends.
In 1996?
Yeah, 97.
97. Okay.
December 20, 1996. Mm-hmm. And his stepfather introduced me to his wife, who was a financial planner. And I had all my, $50 or whatever of retirement that she said she would invest for me after I'd left my old job or whatever. And they became my in-laws. They were like my in-laws. We went in 2017.
At that point, had you met their son?
No.
Okay.
No, I met his sister at one point, and I just loved her, but she lived in Springs, so we never really could be best friends. But we started I'll go to dinner, go to shows, go to football games. And one football game, we were leaving. It was just him and his mom and I. And she said, so my son needs your help. And I was practicing a lot in South Texas.
You were a lawyer at this point.
I was lawyer. Yeah, I had finally graduated. Actually, I graduated from law school the same semester my son graduated from Texas. So, but she said, my son needs your help. I said, okay, well, and she told me where he lived and all that. I said, I really didn't even know she had a son. And she says, no, I want you to do it. Mm. And you don't tell his mother no, believe me. You just don't. She's a very strong person. So I met him. We met at Chili's. And he hired me. And it was really great, he said, because he didn't have to go and try to find a lawyer. And he didn't have time. He didn't have inclination. And so he had to sell his motorcycle to pay my fee. And which is great because anyway,
So he hired you for his divorce?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I was representing him in his divorce. And they had a condo on the island in South Padre. And his parents had invited me to that a couple weeks later. So when I went down there to visit them, he and I got to kind of just socialize. And his mother does this. She goes, you guys were like this. This was in 2010. You guys are like this. And we knew that we had a friendship, a really good friendship. And he came to Houston. We had dinner together a lot and a lot of stuff like that. And then his divorce was final. It was on Groundhog's Day when his divorce was final. He was in a relationship with this other woman who no one liked. And everybody was like, you need to be with Diane. Why aren't you dating Diane? And I had just gotten divorced from my second husband. And, my life coach, we talk about seasons, where you have seasons, right?
Sure.
My second marriage was a season. It's one of those, like, it didn't happen to some extent. It's not like I'm in denial. It's like, whatever. So I am on a cruise in like 2014, and it's a Carnival cruise. I went with some female family lawyers, and we walk in, and with my friend Yesenia, and I'm looking around as people are checking in, and I said, Yesenia, this is like finding Mr. Right in Walmart. And we get back, and she's like, yeah, I think you're right. We get into the ship, and we're walking down this hallway. She goes, well, there's one. And I look up, and it's Todd.
Oh.
I went, Todd. And oh my gosh. Well, his girlfriend knew that I existed and that the family really liked me and that they would have preferred that I be dating him. And she thought his mother and I had scammed that out. And I'm like, I could have come up with a better scam than a Carnival cruise.
So was he on the cruise with the girlfriend?
Yes,
okay.
and another couple,
right.
yeah. So that was it. We saw each other on a cruise, and then I saw him at a football game, and it is his niece's graduation party. I was invited to that. And
When did y'all start dating?
2019. He will take the path of least resistance. So this relationship with this woman lasted a lot longer than it should have. They broke up like in July, and in August he friends me on Facebook, and I'm like, oh, I thought we were always friends. And this is the funny part. He does that wave that you can do on Facebook, that hand. And I'm like, that is so
The creepy wave?
Yes. I said, that is so creepy. No, I'm not responding to that. You're creepy. And then he sent me a message, and we started talking in August of 2019. And it really is no coincidence, Michelle, that it was 2 years after I did the really hard work around my trauma.
That you started dating him.
That we started dating,
Yeah.
and I finally, for the first time in my life, had a healthy relationship where I was authentic, I was honest, I was my true self. And Todd is always his true self. There is nothing that is phony or different about him.
Yeah, but he loved you for your true self.
He did.
Yeah.
And so it was during the political season. We're a little bit politically different. And I would yell at him, like, you just don't understand. And then I realized that didn't work. And so we have found a lot of middle ground in a lot of different things, and we talk a lot.
So tell me, I want to go back to that moment when you were walking your dogs and you smelled the beer and all of that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that in that moment, like, what do you think triggered that particular moment at that particular time when you felt that trauma come front and center for you to deal with? Was there something that triggered it in that moment?
It was kind of sort of like I could almost feel it coming up for a long time. So for a few weeks before that, right? My niece was getting married, my great niece, his granddaughter. And their family's very fractured for all different kinds of reasons. And he wasn't going to be at the wedding, but being in the situation with all that family, I started remembering.
Having to go to the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, when I started doing the work, that one event of my life ripped a hole in my soul.
And you were trying to repair it with alcohol, with
men, with alcohol, with success, with power, with agendas.
Being all of these things external to yourself.
Correct. Yes. I was just going to pour things in there. When I couldn't pour alcohol in, I was this woman that did everything for everybody. There was all different kinds of ways to do that. And that's when I think my soul emptied out. So it could start to heal. Mm-hmm.
And it bubbled up and
when I sponsor women in AA, I talk about the cement, that there's shame, put cement on it. There's more shame, you put cement on it. And as the longer I stayed sober, the more the shame started oozing out, breaking up the cement. And so I had to pay attention to it. And so it wasn't like I had to deal with a lot of shame all at once. It's just a process. They call it the peeling of the onion. Just peel it back, peel it back, peel it back. And for the most part, it's a gentle process.
Yeah. So, okay. Speaking to that 13-year-old girl the morning after this traumatic rape happened, what are the 3 things that you would tell her if you could go back there and whisper in her ear?
It wasn't your fault. You didn't ask for it. He committed a crime. The best part about therapy, I had a Nazi therapist. She looked at me and she said, "You were 13. It happened to you." In other words, I didn't play a role. I was truly the victim. Truly the victim. But I do know, going through therapy, that had I said anything to anybody else, I would have been victimized again.
Worse. What would you say to that same girl at 18? What advice would you give her going into life?
I probably, if I could go back, I would say, do the work. As hard as it's going to be, as much as it's going to suck, do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Do the work. And find your support team, right? Find your people. When I got divorced the first time, I had a horrible support team. And being family lawyers, we know what that looks like, right? The people that are sitting in the back are going, yeah, tell them that. And watch the flames go up. And then they get this vicarious thrill. I get a good support system. People that are going to have your back no matter what. That are going to say, don't do the bad thing. Don't do the wrong thing. Come with me and let's figure out what the right thing is.
Yeah.
Those people, I would talk about that.
Yeah.
And that you have value. You do have value, Diane. You do have something to give to the world. Go out there and give it.
I love that. All right. We're going to play a little game.
Okay. I was wondering what that ball was.
So lighten it up just a bit. So I'm going to toss you the ball, and wherever your thumb lands, you have to answer that question.
Okay.
Okay. All right. You ready?
Ready.
You have to catch it, though.
I don't know that I can do that.
If it goes across the room, we'll have to face it. All right. Here you go. All right. Wherever your thumb lands, answer that question.
Who did you look up to as a kid? That's really a cool question because I absolutely know who it is.
Yes.
It was my neighbor, Roseanne Rogers. Her daughter was the woman that went in the military that kind of paved the path. She reminded me of Mary Tyler Moore, that sort of free spirit. And I didn't know it, but in 1983, she found recovery. But that was, she was my hero long before that. She was my second mother. She was my safe place. She was that person for me. And 3 days after I got sober, I called her and told her that she goes, well, I knew you liked to party. I didn't really know it was a problem. I said, because I wouldn't get drunk in front of my parents. And we traveled together and we went to AA conferences together. I used to travel with them as children. I mean, I was with them all the time. And she died in 2002 of ovarian cancer. And she took a piece of my heart with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's who I looked up to.
All right. Throw it back to me. All right. Someone you'd like to dine with or meet. Ooh. So I would have to say I would like to meet, and I'm going to presume the question is dead or alive. So I'm adding to the question here. So someone I'd like to meet is, I don't know how many great-grandmothers it is, but it's my great, however many grandmother. Her English name is Nancy Ward. Her Cherokee name was Gigayu, which was the beloved woman. She was the last female chief of the Cherokee Nation before the Trail of Tears.
Wow.
And she earned that title because her husband, who was a warrior, a Cherokee warrior, they were in a battle and he got shot. And she took up his gun, and it was back when you had to stuff I don't know what you call it, but you had to create the little bullet and stuff it in and all that. And she was making his bullets while he was shooting. And when he died, she took up his gun and took up the battle as a woman. And so I like to believe that maybe I get my strength from her. And so if I could pick anybody, I think that's who I would like to meet, to know if that is where I get my strength, and to know how in the, I think, 1700s she was able to do that. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be very cool.
Yeah. All right. One more.
An experience that made you a better person.
Woo.
Obviously getting sober.
Yes.
That was to accept, to know, to believe that I cannot drink again.
Yeah.
And today I can't drink.
Yeah. And the process that
the process that it does, and what it unfolds, and what you learn. And I think when I was 9 months sober and I started recognizing that I did indeed have a moral compass.
Yes.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I have direction here. I know where to go and I know what to do.
Yeah.
And
you were able to hone in all those good qualities that you have.
Yes.
And focus them into being
Correct.
Successful.
And learning to tell the truth. Learning to follow up on a commitment.
Yeah.
when I got sober, it would be like if I'm telling you a story. So I was driving down the road, I was going like 65. Actually, if I'm like, oh, no, I was really going 55.
Yeah.
Even though that's an insignificant detail, I felt
Right.
compelled to always tell the truth.
I love it. All right,
Yeah.
one more. What do you most value in a friendship? That one is an easy one for me. Loyalty, 100% loyalty. Because, you know, I think people are imperfect and you take imperfect people where they're at, right? I mean,
Right.
we all mess up. We all have good days and bad days. But for me, at the end of the day, as long as you're loyal, like that is the key to friendship.
I think you're absolutely right.